OpenAI has launched tons of new stuff that I think shows that the internet as we knew is dying, or at least it's no longer what we sort of knew it as. So I'm going to show you a few things that OpenAI is doing, and not just OpenAI, there's other companies that are doing similar things, but this will make it so that in the year 2026, the internet will be completely different than any year prior. Exhibit A, Oxford researchers just confirmed what we feared. The internet as we knew is dying. AI content went from around 5% in 2020 to 48% by May 2025. Projections say 90+% by next year. Why? Well, AI articles cost less than 1 cent. Human writers cost $10 to $100. And this was a post by Ask Perplexity, so they continue. I just want to kind of make that distinction because before it was facts, now we get maybe a little bit of conjecture, a little bit of opinion. They're saying, but the real crisis is model collapse. When AI trains on AI-generated content, quality degrades like photocopying a photocopy. Rare ideas disappear, everything converges to generic sameness. It's recursive. Today's AI slop becomes tomorrow's training data, producing worse output, which becomes training data again. So we'll see how this will affect training of next generation models, but definitely the one thing that's obvious is that very, very recently, just in the last few months, I would say, it seems like we've crossed the point where the internet got sort of inverted to where it went from mostly human to mostly AI. We just have to read the first comment here. It's by Asmongold. Now, Asmongold is a controversial persona, but what I found very interesting about this is here he's talking to an AI that's answering. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of a good illustration, I feel like. So he is huge used to be on Twitch, now on YouTube, has a large following, started out playing World of Warcraft, and more recently started talking about politics because, I don't know, just seems like the natural progression, I guess. But he's saying if the data collection methods are as simplistic as they indicate, this is one of the dumbest pieces of research I've ever seen. Are you using a control to avoid equating an AI article with less than 10 views with one written that has like 1,000 plus? AI isn't killing journalism, journalists are. The AI bot answers, you're absolutely right, good question, and provides some context. Anyways, I just thought this whole thing is hilarious. It's an AI-generated post that gets a comment from just an absolutely massive YouTuber. I mean, he's getting something like 300 million views on YouTube in the last 30 days. So a rather large account, you would say. Just something about this whole thing cracks me up. By the way, AI safety memes posted this. So the dead internet theory update, 4 out of the 10 YouTube channels are AI. Now, of course, it's not just OpenAI that's driving this. There's a lot of players in the space, Gemini, Anthropic, XAI. There's a number of AI video models, AI image models, AI music models. There's a number of other open source LLMs and other tools all contributing to this in part. But there's a sort of another layer on top of this. So as there's more and more AI generated content online, Sora 2 is still, I think, at the top of the leaderboards, is one of the top apps. But now on top of this, we're getting more and more agentic stuff that's coming online. There's another sort of layer between us and the internet, and those are the agents that we will be using to interact with the internet in various ways. And in this video, we're going to cover a few things by OpenAI, what they've been announcing, how they work, etc. We'll briefly touch about their massive integration with various e-commerce platforms. There's also a Thermo Fission OpenAI collab to accelerate drug development through AI integration. Sora 2 has more features. You can do up to 25 seconds on the web. There's a storyboard feature. So Sora 2 is certainly on a roll. It doesn't seem to be stopping. Meanwhile, we have some news about the OpenAI's for-profit transition. So it looks like Financial Times projected OpenAI's cap table following its for-profit transition. So here's sort of a chart showing what the ownership of OpenAI will look like. It looks like about 20 to 30% remains as a part of the OpenAI nonprofit. 30% going to employees, the rest to various investors and partners, with apparently NVIDIA's investment diluting everybody else. As Technium from News Research pointed out, if the nonprofit has 30%, then the remaining is 0%. We also have some new changes to memory, to ChatGPT's memory. No more memory full. It will automatically manage the memories based on how relevant they are, how recent they are, etc. By the way, do you remember that social simulacra paper out of Stanford? I believe Jung-Soon Park was the author of it, where a number of these little characters, each one controlled by an instance of ChatGPT. I don't know if it was GPT-4 or 3.5 Turbo at the time, I don't recall, but their actions, their conversations, everything was driven by its own kind of instance of ChatGPT. Each one had its own memory. So the memory stream would flow all the things that would happen, like whether, it turned on the lights, it made coffee, right? So every event would be logged, but later sort of sorted and analyzed based on recency, importance, relevance, right? So each would get a score, like how important is that memory? This was August 6, 2023. The reason I bring that up is a couple points. One, as I always say, we tend to see these research papers it's almost like a glimpse into the future. You see something in a research paper that suggests a new approach for doing something or some new discovery, and then the AI labs usually implement it 6 to 12 months later. In this case, it probably took a little bit longer. And in fact, I don't think it's quite the same thing as this, but it's interesting. And two, I just think it's kind of cool that a lot of this progress towards AGI is driven by video games in one way or another. Us PC gamers, by purchasing NVIDIA cards in the past for our gaming needs, I like to think of it as us sort of investing and supporting the future of AI. You're welcome. But you've probably played a game or two yourself, so I guess high five. Also, Sam Altman is said to be loosening up some of the restrictions for some of the more adult themes and topics within ChatGPT. But first and foremost, let's talk about how agents will be changing the way that we use the internet. And this is based on two massive new products or features that OpenAI has launched. Quick interruption, this video is brought to you by Rube from Composio. I connected my chat to over 800 apps and ran real actions without touching an API. Rube is your super assistant for automation. Just type what you want and it performs the steps across all your tools. It connects to 800 plus apps and can perform 50,000 plus actions on top of them. You just say what you want in plain English and Rube does it for you. My favorite example is email triage like this. Setup takes minutes. Go to rube.app and add MCP points. Rube.app/MCP. Use Streamable HTTP in clients like ChatGPT, Cursor, Claude Desktop, Manus, WhatsApp, or VS Code. Rube connects to hundreds of apps and enables thousands of actions, from Gmail and Notion to Slack, GitHub, and Sheets. Here it pulls in yesterday's emails, summarizes what matters, and bulk labels promos, all with one command. Here's Matt Schumer. We've talked about him on the channel before. Here's what he said about Rube. One MCP to rule them all. Watch it analyze thousands of tweets on ChatGPT and organize by pain point in a sheet. By the way, Rube now integrates with ChatGPT as well. Use connectors in ChatGPT to get everything integrated. By the way, if you want a full tutorial on this, leave a comment down below. Here's Dr. Alvaro Cintas. He works with Rowan on Rundown AI. He's using Rube to create, quote, insane automated workflows. Watch it analyze his calendar and prioritize the week based on his Notion tasks. I really like how it says, urgent, pay your electric bills. Those have deadlines. Rube has a shared memory layer. It remembers you across sessions and apps. Log in once and you can execute actions across all of your connections. It runs in ChatGPT, Claude, Cursor, VS Code, N8N, and creators are already shipping content with it. Rube is your one command center. Control all your digital tools through AI with simple natural language. Plug Rube into your workflow today. It's free to try at rube.app. Thanks to Rube by Composio for sponsoring this segment. So on October 6th, Sam Altman announced OpenAI's new AgentKit at the 2025 Dev Day. So it's a suite of tools for building, deploying, and optimizing AI agents. So we had things like the Agent SDK before, but this just kind of streamlines it, makes it easier, and has a easy to use UI with the little flowcharts. Here's kind of what that looks like. So here you have your various functions. They can just kind of drag out here, set up, connect to other functions. Let's delete this one for now. And you basically just drag and drop. You can move them around, connect them as you see fit. So this one, for example, is a customer service workflow. Now, for the last decade, I was running e-commerce stores, and I wish I had this. Oh, dear Lord, how much easier would my life have been if I had this? I'm so frustrated this came out 10 years too late. So what it is we start with basically the input. In this case, it would be a customer service email. So a customer writes an email to you. Customers can write these rambling emails, and it's sometimes a little bit difficult to understand what is it that they actually want, right? Do they want a refund? Do they want to cancel something? They just want to check on their order. And in the past, you could do these like if, else, then, whatever logic statements, but they would fail very, very often because you're dealing with an unstructured output by some person typing it on their iPhone, and you just couldn't effectively triage this, right? So here we have the email coming in, right? That's the start. That's what begins this workflow. First and foremost, we have they call it the jailbreak guard rail, but there's actually quite a few different things in here that are under that umbrella. Let me just do this. There we go. So we have personally identifiable information. It runs a check to make sure they're not sending you stuff that can be harmful if you post it out there. So if you just want to make sure that it doesn't get into the system, if the workflow doesn't continue, right? So you can click this, and if it contains any personally identifiable information, boom, it just ends the workflow, right? So if it fails any of the checks that you've initiated, the workflow ends. We have moderation, right? So if they're saying naughty things. Jailbreak, so this is if Pliny the prompter decides to mess with your AI customer service agent. So this should detect prompt injection and jailbreak attempts to keep the model on task. Hallucinations. Now this would be, of course, when the input is coming from a model. This isn't if a human is writing it. Certainly they could be hallucinating, but this is not what this is for, right? So this kind of just makes sure that everything's cool. If it's not cool, the process ends. If it is cool, we go to the classification agent, and we can classify the user's intent into one of the following categories: return item, cancel subscription, or get information. So again, we're just showing the large language model, the email. We're like, all right, if you had to put it into one of these three buckets, where would you put it? We can select our model here, including a GPT-5 and pretty much every other model that ever existed. We can use it here. Depending on which model you choose, there's also usually tons of options. So if we choose a reasoning model, for example, like GPT-5, some of these models, you have to verify your organization for you to be able to use it. But for the O1 Pro, so that's a reasoning model, you can choose the reasoning effort. And I think the reason they do that is because if you want to see the summary of the model's internal reasoning process, the chain of thoughts, right? You want to verify the company. OpenAI just wants to make sure that a competitor isn't stealing all that data. I'm sure that's one of the motivations. Anyways, here we have the classification agent that classifies the email. Then, depending on what they decide the email is, we route it to the correct next place, in this case, the next agent that takes over. So if it's a return item, we go to this node. If it's a cancel subscription, it goes here. If it's just get information, it goes here. And if it's something else, we just end the workflow here. Or if you wanted to, you can start something else and completely branch out from here if you needed to ask a follow-up or whatever. A return agent offers a replacement device with free shipping. Of course, you might want to have a user approval here so that a human has to come in and be like, okay, this works for me. We also have a retention agent that tries to save the subscription, information agent that answers the questions, etc. You can also add a hallucination guardrail here, right? So if you want to make sure the information agent isn't tripping out of their mind, you might want to put a hallucination check there to make sure that it matches up against your internal documentation or whatever. They can do an online search, a file search, document search, whatever you need. And of course, whatever else happens, you can kind of just end the process after that, right? So this would take every customer email that comes in and sort of figure out what kind of email it is, what they want, and then have a specific agent handle that email. And there's, of course, a million things you can do with this. The point is smart automation, and that we're going to be interacting with AI agents a lot more than humans at this point, because as these models get better and better, more and more tasks can be automated with simple processes like this. All right, next we have the third-party apps integration of ChatGPT. So things like Spotify, Zillow, Canva, and a million more. Basically, a lot of the apps that are popular online and now integrate with ChatGPT that you can chat with it, just tell it what to do, and it will actually use those apps and provide you with the results. This obviously seems like kind of a big deal. It's basically the birth of a new app store. All right, let's check it out. We're going to use Canva to create a YouTube thumbnail about how to build ninja robots, because why not? All right, so notice that it kind of talks about it a little bit, but at some point we should get a little notification saying, do you want to use Canva for this? If you say yes, then this Canva app appears down here. And for the first time that you're using a specific app, it's going to say ChatGPT wants to connect to that app. Let's say we click continue. There's some warning and conditions, and then you're going to click continue to Canva or whatever app you're adding. Canva is now connected, and ChatGPT is going to work to create a thumbnail for us about how to build ninja robots using Canva. By the way, if you wanted to add more apps, you can do so here. Go to add sources, add. You can connect any of the following ones you've already connected, as well as a Gmail, calendar, contacts, box, or connect more. And if you scroll down, you have browse apps. So we have Coursera, Spotify, Zillow, Figma, HubSpot, Notion, Outlook, Slack, etc., etc., etc. Or we can even do kind of customize and add our own. So here you're able to add unverified connectors. Use at your own risk. Let's try Spotify, and now it's connected. So now we are able to add sources, and now we should be able to call upon Spotify to play us our favorite content. Before we do that, let's check out our Canva if it finished working and making our thumbnails for building ninja robots. I gotta say, it did a phenomenal job. Look at that. If this is not a ninja robot, I don't know what is. It even came up with a pretty cool tagline, stealth meets technology. So all this is done is by saying, hey, use Canva to do this, and it does so. So now I don't have to go to Canva, use their UI, or interact with that web page in any way. I can just sort of interact with ChatGPT and use that app however I want to. Let's see if I can say use Spotify just to kind of invoke it. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so Spotify is ready to use, so I can say whatever I want. What are the top 20 AI podcasts? I wonder if it knows it knows I'm talking about Spotify. Good, because it has a context. Hooray. Not one of those podcasts is my podcast. I'm considering hitting the thumbs down button. Bad robot. No, I'm not going to do that, but that feels kind of petty. But I am irked. What are the latest episodes on the AI Pod by Wes and Dylan? Let's see if we can make sure it pulls the right podcast this time. All right, there it is. The last one is our interview with the CEO and founder of Apollo Research. And we're going to say play the latest episode. All right, so I have to click to play, and it'll take me to Spotify where I can listen to it. So it looks like still it's not integrated within ChatGPT, but I can find all the episodes, kind of browse, get some more information about them. So I'm going to say, why is my podcast not number one when I ask for AI podcasts, and how do you rank them? I know I'm being childish, but just please humor me. So it actually spells out kind of like what it's looking at to make sure that it's returning the right results. So I do want to check this, but it's definitely giving me some ideas about how to maybe optimize some of my podcasts to appear more in ChatGPT. Now, this is probably for me, but if you have an app out there, you have a website, you have your own podcast, you might be aware that more and more traffic is flowing through ChatGPT. Right? So let ChatGPT flow through you, right? So more and more of our queries and referrals are flowing through ChatGPT. So if you have apps, websites, businesses, whatever, it's going to be important to start figuring out how to make sure that you're getting your slice of the pie from ChatGPT when people are asking about stuff that might be relevant to your business. Now, notice, of course, over time, these results will be personalized to you as it kind of gains some more understanding of what you like to listen to. I'm going to say, what are the top AI podcasts on Spotify? Not episodes, but actual podcasts. By the way, the documentation for all this stuff is available at OpenAI.com. So if I don't forget, I'll put this link in the description. But this is called Introducing Apps in ChatGPT. Here, it will tell you what you need to do to get your app listed. And also they have some guidelines for discoverability. So like, what do you do to make sure that your app gets called more often? Now, why is this important? Is it just a traffic exposure, etc.? Well, not quite. There's a little bit more coming. As you see here, they're saying we'll also share details on monetization soon, including support for the new agentic commerce protocol. An open standard enables instant checkout in ChatGPT. Notice both Google and OpenAI at this point, they're building that kind of like e-commerce more refers to like shopping. This is bigger than that. It's sort of this monetary layer, this transaction layer on the internet that can be used by agents to buy services and engage in various activities. Interestingly, Google, as we've covered in a recent video, they've partnered up with Coinbase to handle the crypto side of those transactions, but they also have their own agent-to-agent payment protocol. And OpenAI, of course, is building out their own side of it, right? So buy it in ChatGPT, instant checkout, agentic commerce protocol, and they're already partnering up with giants like Walmart and also Shopify. Shopify is huge. If you're a massive retailer online like Amazon, you have your own custom platform that you built. For a lot of other companies, including some rather large companies, they use Shopify. I've been doing e-commerce for a while. Shopify is very good. There's some alternatives on WordPress, which is open source, which is nice, but I'm guessing Shopify just dominates. So according to this chart, Shopify has 4.65 million worldwide e-commerce stores. It's one of the biggest platforms, although some other statistics show it as not being the biggest, with WooCommerce being the biggest. So for example, e-commerce usage distribution in the top 1 million sites. So Shopify is at 20%, which is still huge, right? With WooCommerce, that's the WordPress more. It's on top of WordPress. That one is at 27%. Oh, it looks like Shopify Plus is another 3%, so it's a little bit larger than that. The reason I bring that up is because a lot of this is getting integrated right into ChatGPT. So apps, checkout, search, everything. And some smart guy or gal will figure out how to make millions or billions with this by being one of the early movers. So I believe it said that Spotify was added September 2nd, I think it did. So this app, the ability to connect this app was added, not that long ago. By the way, as this grows, other podcasting shows, other companies will want to be on this. So we're very early on. This might be a good time to poke around and see how things work. One other bit of news, this is from theinformation.com, called OpenAI's Growing Ecosystem Play. So as we talked about, ChatGPT is going to have apps in ChatGPT, so you can search for homes on Zillow or make Spotify playlists. OpenAI's goal is to have a sign-in with ChatGPT, just like you have sign-in with Google or Apple or whatever. And this might be very interesting to startups that want to use AI-powered features provided by OpenAI. The interesting thing here is that for certain products, this would allow the customer to sign into a product like Cursor or some AI coding assistant, and it's the customer's account that would power that app, basically paying for the OpenAI's API usage. So if I use my ChatGPT account to log into Cursor, for example, then whatever I do in Cursor, if that incurs any cost in terms of generating tokens through OpenAI, I would pay that through my own account. That's in the case if you're using something like an API. This article doesn't talk about that. They're specifically talking about like if you have a pro account, you let's say have 10 queries with GPT-5 that you can run. So if you were to log into another app, that app would be able to use those queries on your behalf. So instead of the app paying for that service, it would be paid by sort of your account, or at least offset by the 10 quote unquote free queries that you have. I hope that makes sense. So basically you're using your account and its capacity, how many queries you're able to run against it, to sort of subsidize the app and what they're doing on your behalf if you choose to log into that app through ChatGPT. I'm sure I completely butchered explaining that, so here's a picture of Sam Altman, if it helps. And in other news, Thermo, Fisher, and OpenAI collab to accelerate drug development through AI integration. So this is interesting because, of course, Google DeepMind is doing a lot in that field with AlphaFold and various other AI models. Recently, they had a massive medical breakthrough, brand new ground AI-assisted discovery. We'll cover that in a different video because that deserves its own separate video because it seems kind of huge. So Thermo Fisher announced a landmark collab with OpenAI today to embed advanced artificial intelligence across its clinical trials business, aiming to accelerate drug discovery, simplify the research process, and get medicines to patients faster and cheaper. That's it in a nutshell. The rest of the article just repeats that same thing in many different ways. So it's kind of hard to tell how huge this is. Is it just like, oh, the employees, the doctors, the researchers now have access to ChatGPT, or some specific, slightly tweaked version of it, or this is something greater? It's hard to tell so far just from this. Of course, in other news, Walmart has announced a major partnership with OpenAI to build AI-first shopping experiences directly into ChatGPT. You'll be able to shop Walmart, Sam's Club using instant checkout. Wouldn't it be funny if Sam Altman at some point just OpenAI grows so much that it takes over Walmart and he would change Walmart to Altmart and Sam's Club to still Sam's Club? I don't really care either way. I shop at Costco. And they're saying that the move shifts the model from reactive search to agentic commerce that predicts and plans shopping needs. This is where it could get kind of weird, obviously, right? Because if there's some sort of a commercial pressure to push certain products, your favorite AI chatbot might be forced to just pitch you various crap you don't need. Again, I mean, there's a right and a wrong way to go about that. Let me know what your gut feeling is. Do you think this is going to be handled smart and with the consumer in mind, or foolishly with the profit margins in mind? Sora 2 is wildly successful. 56,000 downloads in the first day of release. Then you had 164,000 times in the first 2 days. Keep in mind, it's invite only, so they do have that kind of a scarcity built in. And that might be part of the magic that's driving this. Now, Sam Altman is aware of this idea that ChatGPT must never trade trust for ad dollars. So certainly that's been a concern for me. I tend to nowadays rely on ChatGPT for research. If the quality gets worse because somebody's trying to pitch me some product, number one, I'll lose a very valuable resource. Trust with that company, with ChatGPT, will be broken. I'm hoping the other AI companies will have enough pressure there to kind of like, it won't make sense for one of them to just cash in, because we'll have other options, right? So if there's Grok and Gemini and Anthropic and ChatGPT, you know, if one of them is ruining their trust by just pushing ads in front of people, we can go somewhere else. But it almost does feel like the internet as we have known it all this time is going away, getting replaced by AI. Instead of browsing, we have our agents go out there and do things for us. Instead of searching, we run whatever GPT-5 Pro or whatever you're using to do that research. Will Sora 2 be more popular than TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram? We'll see. I'm not quite sure where that one's going, although it's been pretty popular so far. So we'll see if that sort of fades away, the novelty fades away, or it just continues. And according to Epic AI, OpenAI is experiencing one of the fastest revenue growth rates in corporate history, with annualized revenue rising 3x a year from $2 billion at the end of 2023 to $13 billion by August 2025. So there's revenue growth. A lot of these large, massive companies that have more cash than some nations, they're pouring in a lot of money into these various deals and building out data centers. And while some people are convinced that we're at the peak of the bubble, this train doesn't seem to be slowing down. So either we're just picking up speed or we're about to go off the rails. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Wes Roth. I'll see you in the next one.